I've been asked to make a video showing off all the various puzzles in the Nancy Drew games that I usually cheat on. I feel kind of sad now because there are over 150 puzzles that I usually cheat on. I thought I was a better Nancy Drew player than that. Granted, that works out to like 3 puzzles per game, but still, I didn't know I was so much of a cheater. Well, here are the puzzles I cheat on, starting with the first game. You have the Braille puzzle, and I never actually try to solve it. I have a picture in my notes that tell me the 4 buttons to press, so I just follow the picture in my notes rather than trying to figure it out every single time. Same with the Braille puzzle for the remastered version of the game. Also the Elements puzzle at the end of Secrets Can Kill Remastered. I solved it legitimately once and then never again because it's like an 18-step puzzle. I don't have the patience to solve it correctly every single time I play the game. Moving on ahead to game number 3, the maze puzzle on Lewis's computer. I generally press the button M, which brings up a map in Nancy's dialogue box. That lets me get through the puzzle much faster. With the Zodiac puzzle, I don't know the Zodiac. I don't know the order of the animals in the Zodiac. So I just have a picture in my notes that tell me the order to push these 12 buttons. Similarly, with these symbols, I have notes that say you want to go 2 to the right and then click, 2 to the right and then click, then 4 to the left and then click. And that gives me the solution, as opposed to, having to draw out every single symbol every single time I play the game. Moving on to the Secret of the Scarlet Hand, there are lots of puzzles I skip in this game. The audio narration puzzle is one I can solve on my own, but that requires so much going back and forth between the exhibits and the audio narration area that I usually just cheat and look up the solution. With the ham radio puzzle, you have a minor math puzzle to figure out what number to call, and I never actually bother to solve that. I just have in my notes that you're calling number 2731, and that's what I do. There are lots of puzzles in the pyramid that I skip. We have this matching puzzle on the first floor, where you match glyphs to the words they represent. I know some of the answers to the quiz, but I don't know all of the answers to the quizzes, so in my notes I have a list of every single answer. If I'm feeling extra lazy, I don't bother to solve this ball puzzle on the second floor of the pyramid. I look up the answers for the quiz. To get through the maze, again, I have a map appear so I can get through the maze faster. Again, this is a long matching challenge, and to look up the answers, I'd have to go outside of the pyramid, which takes like 2 minutes to get from the bottom floor to outside again. So I don't bother, I just look up the answer. Same with this puzzle, which is tough because it's really hard to actually see what these symbols are. For the dog statue puzzle in Game 7, I sometimes cheat. Same with the book puzzle in game number 9. So with these puzzles, if I can't solve it on my own in, say, like a minute or 2 minutes, then I generally go to my notes and look up the solution, but I will try to solve them on my own. With Holt's quiz in game number 9, I thought I had all the answers to the quiz memorized, but the last time I played the game, I couldn't remember the answers for the life of me, so I just cheated. I always cheat on the Morse code puzzle in game number 9 because I'm not memorizing the Morse code for numbers. Or letters, actually. I'm not going to memorize Morse code just for a simple puzzle. The puzzle in Nancy's email is another puzzle that I usually cheat on. It's not a bad puzzle, it's just, at that point in the game, you've been trying to solve the scavenger hunt for so long, I just want to move on and get to the final step. I feel like I have to cheat in order to solve the vegetables puzzle in Secret at Shadow Ranch, because that puzzle's impossible, and I will never feel bad about cheating on that one. I often have to cheat on the horse food puzzle, because I don't know the difference between oats and grains and wheat. I just can't tell the difference between these various ingredients just by looking at them. The maze puzzle is no fun. I definitely cheat on that one. Same with the flowers puzzle. I don't really like the flowers puzzle that much, so I cheat on it. I don't know if this counts as cheating or not, but I always save my game before doing the slot machine puzzle at Cappy's. That way, if I don't win the game, I don't have to go all the way back to Mary's to get another token. I can just reload my game and try again. The maze puzzle at the end of Shadow Ranch has over 20 steps, so I just use my notes to tell me what the colors are, as opposed to decoding this message every single time. In Curse of Blackmore Manor, I have a picture of the correct puzzle solution in my notes, because I'm not going to bother memorizing the order that all 10 of these pieces need to go in. Getting them in the right spots is tough enough without having it memorized. I have a picture in my notes telling me how to spell out Eleanor in runes. I always cheat on this puzzle. What you're supposed to do is look at 12 different coats of armor and match them with a picture inside the Mutus Liber to match them with this. And that's just way too much effort. I don't think I've ever solved this puzzle legitimately. I have notes telling me how to solve the cube puzzle in Nancy's room, as well as that Zodiac puzzle in her room. The conversations in the ham radio puzzle and Secret of the Old Clock are a little long, so I don't have all the cues memorized, I just have them written down in my notes. Sorting the dolls in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon is a tough puzzle, which takes a really long time because you have 11 different dolls to sort, and you need to identify all the dolls. So you need to have, like, notes on every single doll and then sort them. Yeah, that's way too much effort. I just have a picture of the solution in my notes. I don't know why, but I often forget this combination, so I always have it written in my notes because it just escapes my memory. Same with this puzzle. It's not that tough, but I often find myself just completely forgetting how to solve it, and so I just check my notes. I always cheat on the final puzzle where you need to press these various boards in the correct order. Making tea for Minette is not that bad, you just have to be very slow and careful about it. But that's too much work, it's way easier just to look up the list of the correct ingredients. Making photos for Dieter is a huge pain. It's far easier to flush the toilet 10 times, and that way you can skip the entire puzzle. I always have my notes on hand when solving the Prudence Rutherford puzzle. I can usually solve it on my own, but sometimes I get stuck. I generally cheat on this safe puzzle because I'm too lazy to go all the way back to the Metro map to look up what these correct numbers are. Same with the safe puzzle at the end of the game, which is kind of tough. It is a lot of effort to solve that one on your own. Opening Quigley's trunk is easy enough, but going back and forth between the lock and her recorder can take a while, so I generally just look up the solution. I always look up the solution to the Frass puzzle. It takes forever to solve that puzzle on your own. Remembering the 8 correct animals to get into Kapu Cave can be difficult. I usually just look it up. Same with the puzzle where you need to swim at the 8 correct animals. I just have a list of the animals in order. Tino's puzzle is ridiculous and silly, so I rarely bother to do it correctly. I just look up the solution. I know I solved this slot puzzle once and then never again. It is far too difficult for me to figure it out every single time. When you give commands to Isis, there are a lot of commands. You have to give her like 6 or 7 different commands 3 times in a row. I just have them written down. I generally cheat on the puzzle of opening Renee's trunk in Legend of the Crystal Skull. Actually, I cheat on pretty much all the stories in Bruno's book. There's a lot of different story puzzles here, and they all seem to be extremely long, or they require you to go back and forth between 2 different locations, and that's too much work for me. So for example, with the teeth puzzle, you're supposed to go back and forth between upstairs and downstairs to solve it. I don't bother with that. With the 3 clock puzzles, you have to do this complicated series of math. Okay, it's not that complicated, but still, it's a lot of math, and at least 12 different basic math problems in a row. I don't like that. practically have to look up the solution for the skeleton hand puzzle. That's just so long. It's over 30 steps. You kind of have to have the solution written down. Puzzle of pushing in those bird heads. Yeah, that one's a pain. I just look up the solution. Same with pulling the strings on the spider's nest in the correct order. And the last puzzle in Bruno's book is finding a direction for 25 different eyes. That is way too much to keep track of. I just follow my notes. I'm still not sure how you're supposed to find the correct pigeon in Phantom of Venice. One of these pigeons is correct. How do you know which one's correct? I don't know. I just have a picture in my notes with the correct pigeon circled. I always forget to write down the code to get into Zetere's apartment, so I just cheat to get inside. The fax machine puzzle is one that's really long. I think it's like 20 different digits. It's way too long for me to memorize the numbers, so I just follow my notes. The sewers puzzle is just plain nasty, even when I'm following my notes. It takes a while, and I can easily get lost. So yeah, I definitely cheat on that one. Also, this puzzle, it's not that bad, but I don't think the game gives you enough time to legitimately solve it on your own before Nancy dies. So because there's a tough time limit, I generally just cheat on it. Moving the leprechauns requires going back and forth between the book and the leprechauns over and over again. I generally just cheat on that one. I've gotten so stuck on the otter puzzle sometimes that I always have a picture of the solution in my notes. I cheat on the puzzle of pressing the 3 buttons to push the fence down, and that is just sheer laziness on my part, because it is not that much time between you seeing the correct buttons and you having to push the buttons. I also have the solution to the gears puzzle on hand, just in case I get stuck. Opening up the desk requires you to solve 5 different word puzzles, and that's generally too much effort. I generally just look up the solution. The wires puzzle is way too difficult. I just check my notes instead of actually solving that maze of wires on my own. I wish there was a way to cheat on the chemicals puzzle. I really do. It'd be so nice if you could just skip this puzzle entirely. Anyway, my notes have a list of which chemicals go in which location, and that's not so much cheating as it is just saving me from having to constantly go back and forth between the puzzle and the notes, which are a few steps away. I like to cheat on the monkey coconut puzzle by pausing the game, by clicking outside of the game screen. That way the game doesn't move, and I have enough time to get my cursor into position. Same with underwater Sudoku. I will generally click outside the game window. That freezes the game and gives me unlimited time to figure out where these squares go. Doing the math for the waypoints puzzle isn't that tough, it just takes a long time. Even when I'm cheating, it takes about 2 minutes to enter 16 different sets of coordinates, and that's just way too long, so I figure, why not cheat? Same with the jigsaw puzzle. I like the slider puzzle aspect of this, but the jigsaw puzzle takes too long. It takes about 2 minutes to solve it, even when I'm cheating. I generally cheat on the Atosha puzzle. I did solve it legitimately once, and then I followed my notes every subsequent time. For whatever reason, the animals puzzle seems like way too much work for me. I always cheat on that one. I feel like you have to cheat in order to solve the hourglass puzzle. That's a really tough puzzle. It involves difficult timing. Sadly, there's no really good way to cheat the DNA puzzle in Warnings at Waverly Academy. I have a picture of the correct solution, which helps a little, but doesn't help that much. With the piano puzzle, I have notes telling me which keys to press. Same with the forks puzzle and the puzzle of climbing the tree. My notes tell me where to put the Starburst tokens in the basement, as well as which levers to pull to open the secret passageway. The County Siren chart is such a pain. I generally cheat on that one. With the puzzle of putting in the various wind speeds, I generally cheat to get the first few in place, and then I can solve it legitimately from there. Fixing Frosty's camera can take a really long time if you try to do it legitimately, so I always have a solution on hand in case I get bored and decide to cheat. I'm not very good with the transmission puzzle. I generally cheat on that one. I also cheat on the television puzzle, although does it really count as cheating? Because you have the solution that you're going for on screen while solving the puzzle? Sometimes I get lost in a subway in Shadow at the Water's Edge, so I have notes telling me how to get through them. I generally cheat on the Master Sudoku puzzle because it takes a really long time to enter the solution even when you're cheating. I cheat on the origami puzzle and the puzzle of labeling all of the various ingredients in the tea ceremony. I generally cheat on the rock puzzle, which is weird because it's only like 4 rocks. I really don't need to cheat on that one. I also cheat on entering the password to the computer rather than going all the way back to Takei's room and looking up what the various symbols mean. I tend to cheat on this puzzle. It's just a little bit too difficult for me to figure out on my own. I tend to cheat on this origami puzzle even though I don't have to. The origami book is right there on the screen. I could refer to it instead of cheating. Of course I cheat on the Master Nonograms puzzle. This is another puzzle which takes a really, really long time to solve even when you're cheating. In the Captive Curse, I have a picture of the correct solution to the cards puzzle in case I get stuck. Same with the puzzle that lets you get into the secret passageways from the well. I have the solution to the Enigma Machine puzzles written down because I don't have these German words memorized. The puzzle of opening the lock in Carl's room is just a little bit too complicated. You have to go back and forth between the planner and the raid book, so I just cheat on that one. I generally cheat on the puzzle of pressing these 5 symbols in the correct order. I can usually solve this puzzle in Alibi in Ashes on my own, but in case I can't, I have the solution in my notes. Opening Tony's filing cabinet is a pretty tough puzzle. It's just following a list of instructions, basically, and I have those instructions in my notes. I do not like the puzzle of figuring out the correct audio levels for Bess. I just look up the solution. I always look up the solution for the endgame puzzle in Alibi in Ashes, rather than going through Alexi's overly complicated notes on how to solve the puzzle. In Tomb of the Lost Queen, I can generally solve this puzzle on my own, but I do have the solution in my notes in case I get stuck. The Sons of Horus puzzle is enough of a pain that I generally cheat on it, although you can figure it out on your own if you're really, really determined. I don't usually bother with the amulet sorting puzzle. That just has too much going back and forth between the amulets and the various books. I just cheat on that one. I always cheat on the puzzle of spelling out the names of Nefertari's sons and daughters. That requires you to go back and forth between, like, 4 different books and papers in your inventory, and that's just way too much cross-referencing. I always cheat on the Cobras puzzle. I cheat on the logic puzzle to get inside the safe room in the Deadly Device, simply because it's too much work. You have to figure out the order, the shape, and the color of those buttons. I used to have the book puzzle memorized, but just in case, I've got the solution in my notes. I have a picture of what the correct solution to the circuit board puzzle is. I have the phone password written down in my notes. It changes whether you're doing Master Sleuth mode or Amateur Sleuth mode. I generally cheat on this puzzle. I don't know why this one gives me so much trouble, but it does. A clocks puzzle is so hard that once I figured it out, I put down the solution in my notes so I wouldn't have to solve it again. I generally try to solve this numbers puzzle, but I sometimes get stuck, so I have the solution in my notes. I pretty much always cheat on the briefcase puzzle because it's so close to the end of the game. I don't feel like doing a 16-step puzzle. I just want to get to the end of the game at that point. Opening Nancy's safe is a pretty simple math puzzle, but unless I have a calculator handy, I generally just skip it. I always skip this puzzle. Well, I mean, I don't skip it. I just have a picture of the solution in my notes, and I just follow my solution. I wish there was a way to completely skip the puzzle so I don't have to bother solving it. There are 2 wires puzzles in the Silent Spy. I generally don't have the patience to solve them. This particular puzzle is really long and complicated, so I always skip it. Same with the puzzle of opening up this lock. I know it's long and complicated on purpose, and that just makes me want to skip it all the more. I have the solution to the bagpipes puzzle written down in my notes. Same with this puzzle. It's not that complicated, but it's easier to just follow my notes as opposed to re-solving the puzzle every time I play the game. I'm not sure why, but this particular jigsaw puzzle always seems to confuse me. I definitely keep the solution in my notes. I have the solution to the music box puzzle in my notes. The jigsaw puzzle of the formula is pretty tough. It takes me a long time, even when I'm following the picture in my notes. So yeah, I generally cheat because it's such a long puzzle. I try not to cheat with the final puzzles, but if I do, this is the puzzle I cheat on. This is probably the toughest to figure out on your own. I can't be bothered with the flowers puzzle and the shattered medallion. I generally just look up the solution. Same with the puzzle of getting through the cameras. I sometimes can solve it on my own, but usually I get stuck and need to look up the solution. The puzzle of opening up Sunny's trunk is a math puzzle, which is just too much work for me. I have instructions on how to get through the kayak race rather than trying to figure out the correct pathway every time. I tend to cheat through the battleship puzzle, the puzzle of turning on the lights, the tiebreaker puzzle is a pain, I don't like that. I've never been able to figure out the end game puzzle on my own. Yeah, Shattered Medallion has a lot of puzzles I dislike, and therefore I skip them. Making the temples and Labyrinth of Lies takes a long time if you do it yourself. I just follow my instructions. I struggle with sorting these animals because 4 of them are birds that look rather similar, so I just look up the solution in my notes. With the Provenance puzzle, I can't be bothered to go back and forth between the papers in the room and the computer, so I just look up the stuff about received by, received when, current owner. Look up this labeling puzzle solution. I look up the weight numbers that you're trying to reach for the weights puzzle. This Thunderbolts puzzle is difficult for me for some reason, so I generally look up the solution. This puzzle is long and complicated and not fun, definitely worth the cheat. I generally cheat on the light cues puzzle because it takes so long. This puzzle is one that generally trips me up. It's not a very forgiving puzzle, so I generally cheat on it. I can sometimes solve this word puzzle on my own, but if I can't, I have the solution in my notes. Same with the puzzle of spinning whatever you call those things, spinning them into position. Looks like the seeds puzzle requires you to place 30 or 40 or 50 seeds on the board. That's too many. I generally cheat on that puzzle. I like this word puzzle, but I definitely have the solution in my notes in case I get stuck. I always have trouble with this puzzle. It's like a jigsaw puzzle and a math puzzle combined. I do not think those two different elements go together well. This is a simple math puzzle in another language. I figured it out on my own, and then I just follow my notes every other time I play the game. The stuffed animal puzzle and the crystals puzzle are both in Magnus's hut. They're both quite long and right next to each other, so I generally skip one of them. I've gotten stuck on the bilge pump puzzle enough that I have the solution in my notes. The lion heads puzzle is one that gives me trouble, so I generally skip it. The music box puzzle is a really long and complicated puzzle if you try to solve it on your own, so I generally skip it. Same with the music puzzle at the very end, where you have to press the symbols that are in the song. You can solve it through guess and check, but I generally just look up the solution. With the maze at the end of Midnight in Salem, I generally just follow the instructions in my notes as opposed to trying to solve the maze every time I play the game. Not that I play the game very often. I also have notes for this puzzle in Midnight in Salem. Those are the various Nancy Drew puzzles that I tend to cheat on, or at least I have a copy of those puzzle solutions in my notes so I can refer to the solution if I get stuck. Again, I'm surprised there are so many puzzles I cheat on. I thought I was a much better puzzle solver than that. I guess not.